Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 214. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, both from Truth and Facts Sports, if that's right. What's going on, Bo? What's going on?
What's going on, man? It's all good. All good. Just glad to be here, man.
Sorry, I had to mute something back there as background. For those who are new, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live YouTube show, podcast, as well as blog discussing all things boxing. Good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get talked about. If you want to find information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to. P4P Boxing Report. .wordpress.com is the link. Check the right of the page. You'll find links to the channels and pages on Twitter, G Plus, YouTube, Facebook, Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the show: SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM for the folks in the UK, as well as Mixcloud. Going to be a short episode this evening. Took last week off. Yeah, there was some fights happening, but don't really want to talk about them that much. Gilberto Ramirez, he fought, but his performance was kind of bored by it, so no need to talk about it as far as I'm concerned. Got nothing from it, and you don't know what's next from him. Uh, so we're gonna go strictly into some news here. I guess the big news that happened while we was off. James DeGale um, recently won back his IBF Super Middleweight belt a couple of months ago. Has a mandatory or had a mandatory, I should say, coming up, but DeGale decided to vacate the belt. Um, given given his who his mandatory was against Bo, um, do you think this was a duck, or do you think there's something there to the rumors of a possible fight with Billy Joe Saunders that we both heard a few weeks back?
See, this is a very, very tricky one. And the reason being is, of course, we say something about these guys. What do we always say? It's prize fighting, right? And the thing is that you are supposed to get paid. And if you have a chance to make your biggest payday, but the reason why you can't also look at this as a duck is Billy Joe Saunders is a 160-pound fighter. So you're actually going, it's not like Billy Joe Saunders fighting at 168. You actually giving up your belt to go down, not up. But you're also challenging, I guess you're going to challenge Billy Joe Saunders for the middleweight title. But are you going to hold it? So it's so many pieces to this. But here's why, for me, I don't have a problem with people calling it a duck, is because he openly admitted and said, well, sometimes you have to duck. And when he said that, I'm like, okay, no. I'm sorry. Because the reality was Ustatega was one of those fights that was high risk, extremely low reward. Like, you get paid a decent amount of money to fight Jack. You're probably not going to get paid that much to fight Ustatega. And most, he doesn't really fight out of the UK. He mostly fights over here in the US. So it's not like he could have fought him over in the UK and made decent money, because you don't have that big of a following there as far as the UK is concerned. Right. So me personally, I'd have to call it a duck, only because I know who he was you was facing with Ustatega. And even though that you might lose to Billy Joe Saunders, because I think Saunders is very slick, like James DeGale is a front runner fighter. James DeGale is he's not the type of fighter that is a 12-round fighter. He's a sprinter, which means he's a front runner. He's good for the first 4 to 5 rounds, maybe even 6. Then after that, he fades. And Ustatega is not the kind of guy you want to fade against. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't want to fade against a guy like Ustatega. So you'd have to call this a duck, only because, and I'm gonna say it again, for me, that the convincing part to me that would make me call it duck is he openly admits this and says sometimes you have to duck. So because you openly admitted this by saying, well, sometimes you have to duck or sometimes you have to vacate, okay. But if You don't land a Billy Joe Saunders fight, or hell, you don't even land a Chris Eubanks Jr. fight, then you damn right this was a duck, and a poor one at that.
Yeah, it certainly comes off of that way as a duck. Um, I he can spin it how he wants, but given how Uzcategui, his two fights against DeGale, and as you was mentioning, both styles make fights. This is a wrong style for DeGale, who many feel is physically on the decline to begin with. Coming off of the two bouts against Truax, uh, certainly looks as if either the fighter, his team, his handlers was like, this is a too much of a this is a tough proposition to go up against, given
Mm-hmm.
how he hasn't looked right since um, 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 the unification bout, Baldu Jack fight. He hadn't looked the
He
same
hasn't.
since then.
He hasn't looked right to me. I go back to Porky Medina. He didn't look right in that Porky Medina fight to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you got a point there. So yeah, it certainly looks like a duck. Where he goes from here, who knows? Maybe Saunders. Maybe he fights the winner of the super middleweight tournament between Smith and Groves. Who knows? But certainly
Groves
his
won't fight him. Groves had made it very clear he would never fight James DeGale. I remember them saying that.
if Smith wins, do you think he'll fight? Do
I
you
think
think he'll
Smith
fight?
will. I think Smith will fight him. Yeah, but Groves made it very clear he doesn't even want to give him the payday.
Mm. Let's move on to other news that took place was announced today. Um, Naoya Inoue, who
Mm.
in May obliterated Jamie McDonald to win a belt at 118, formally announced today via Twitter and in some subsequent interviews that he's indeed going to be part of the World Boxing Super Series Bantamweight Tournament that's set to take place next year. Um, when we talk boxing, Bo, whether it's the cruiserweight tournament, whether it's the super middleweight tournament, or this upcoming tournament at bantamweight and junior featherweight, um, is got not getting the attention it probably deserves, particularly here
Mm.
in the states. But if you look at these tournaments, the cruiserweight tournament has been outstanding, and given the fighters that's going to take part in the bantamweight tournament, um, you're talking Payano, who announced he's going to be a part of the tournament. You're talking Nonito Donaire, who's coming back down to 118. You're talking Emmanuel Rodriguez, who looked very
Mhm.
good in winning the world title a couple of months back. Tete, um, this tournament is outstanding, Bo. Outstanding.
Let's not forget Jason Maloney, Brian Burnett.
Yes.
I mean, the winner of this is going to come out one fight away from becoming undisputed, which is the reason why I like these tournaments. It narrows down the field. It's narrowing down the field of the champions. The only issue is that the super middleweight one didn't do that as much. Like when Ward and them entered it, it really narrowed it down. But it's still narrowing it down enough. But when you look at this, and and it's a crying shame that nobody pays attention to the bantamweight division. Like Naoya Inoue had announced he was going to be in it, but it officially became official today. But said his intent was to go in there. When you look at this, you're talking Ryan Burnett, who's the WBA champion, Naoya Inoue, who's the regular champion, Burnett's a super champion, Emmanuel Rodriguez, like you said, who looked spectacular, and Emmanuel Rodriguez is a guy who was kind of on people's radar, but not quite on people's radar. And then he had that performance, and now you're looking at him, and you're like, "Ooh, what if Inoue has to fight this guy? What if Tate has to fight this guy? What if Burnett has to fight this guy?" Like when you look at the fields, Alani Tate, Carlos Payano, whom if you go to threekingsboxing.com, I wrote an article about him entering. He's a former world champion, so he brings a lot of experience. Jason Maloney, like you mentioned, any of these guys can upset the apple cart. You see what I'm saying? You look at these fights, like when you look at this tournament, there's no one name you can look at and say that's the automatic winner. because I like Naoya Inoue, but when I look at Zolani Tete, Inoue is at a huge disadvantage from height and reach. And Zolani Tete knows how to use that. You see what I'm saying? So it's like this, when you look at this, it's like there's no, okay, this is the winner. I love this tournament. I think Naoya Inoue entered this tournament even adds more to it because he is the top, he's number 3 on my pound for pound list. And this is a guy that if he wins this tournament, his resume, Ryan Burnett or Emmanuel Rodriguez, Zolani Tete, he wins this tournament, his resume would be impeccable. Like whoever wins this tournament, no doubt is the man of the bantamweight division. And Inoue being in there just adds more spice to it. I'm excited. I can't wait for the first fight to take place because, like you said, Inoue destroyed Jamie McDonald. Emmanuel Rodriguez destroyed his fighters. Zolani Tete can destroy any damn body. And then you throw in the former world champions in Payano, Maloney, and you know, and let's not leave out what's the other guy name who's entering it?
Burnett, Inoue,
Oh no,
Rodriguez.
well, Nonito Donaire. This could revive.
Yeah.
Right. All Nonito Donaire needs is one victory to revive his career. He don't have to win a tournament; just get one solid victory. That could revive him a little bit. So I like it, man. I'm excited. But Inoue, if there's anybody that's the front runner right now, it have to be Inoue. But like I said, Zolani Tete is going to be a tough one for him.
Yeah. My only concern with Donaire is that at this stage of his career, fighting at 22 and 26 for so long, is it really a good thing for him to come back down to 118 pounds? I mean, he hasn't fought there for years, and the reason he claimed that he moved up to 22 is because he had issues making 118. And all of a sudden, this stage in his career, in his mid-30s, he's talking about moving back down to 118. I don't know about that. And even if he can make the weight, I don't know how much it may take a lot away from him at this advanced stage of his career. But everybody else who you mentioned, yeah, this is going to be a heck of a tournament if the fighters live up to their billing and come to fight and come to perform. They should, given what's on the line of potential money that can be made. One more story here before we start previewing some fights, because I said this is going to be a short show. During the introduction and where you can listen to the fights and all that, I failed to mention, since you talked about Three Kings Boxing, that I am now a writer for Three Kings Boxing. Shout out to Bo, who talked to 2K, who runs Three Kings Boxing. We chatted back and forth this weekend, and now you can read my work not only on my personal pound for pound boxing for a blog, but you can read some of my work also on Three Kings Boxing. Yesterday, I wrote a piece about a fight that was announced between Sergey Deveryachenko and Daniel Jacobs. There was supposed to be a purse bid on July 15th, but Lou DeBella, Eddie Hearn both announced on Twitter that they've come to terms for a fight in October. Don't know if it's going to be in New York, either at Barclays or MSG. It's going to be televised on HBO. No. I didn't talk. I didn't write about that. Someone else wrote it. I wrote about another fight. I may talk about that. But in short, Deveryachenko, Daniel Jacobs, they're going to be fighting in October on HBO, either the 20th or 27th in New York. Your reaction to that, Bo?
That's a very good fight for the vacant IBF title, and it's kind of a shame how this came about. The whole Carnelo incident is, how this came about. I know a lot of people are mad at Gennady Golovkin because now the whole thing of wanting to be undisputed. That's why he wanted to get all the belts. Kind of goes out the window, flies with people. But when I look at Daniel Jacobs, he had that one defeat early in his career, and I just chalked that up from maybe at that time that's when the cancer in his back was started to rear his little head. Because if you look after that, he had a few fights after that, but then he was out of the ring for a very long time dealing with that. But ever since then, he's put together a string of wins, a string of victories. He's found his footing. And he had, and arguably some people felt that he won, but he had a good showing against Gennady Golovkin. So good, in fact, that HBO wanted to give him a 3-fight contract. And he wants to get, he felt he won, and he wants to get back into the picture of Canelo Alvarez, or you know, the winner of Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin, because the reality is, if you're not going to fight a Canelo Alvarez, the next guy from a money standpoint that you can get somewhat money outside of Billy Joe Saunders is still Daniel Jacobs, because Daniel Jacobs is still a hot commodity. He is still a very known fighter. So he's fighting Derevyanchenko. Now, the thing with Derevyanchenko, and I don't really like knocking guys, Derevyanchenko's only had 12 fights. Okay. So right away, right then and there, experience is going to be a killer. I think Daniel Jacobs is taller than him. Daniel Jacobs, I believe, have a longer reach than him. His biggest victory, in my opinion, is when he fought Deshaun Johnson. Not Deshaun Johnson, Toriano Johnson, but Toriano Johnson had already had a loss. He fought Deshaun Johnson, but Deshaun Johnson's only 22-22. And that was a fight where it kind of went to a decision against that guy. He can be sporadic at times. He can admire his work just a little bit too long. He can stand in the pocket and admire his work just a little bit too long. And then, you know, he's a very good hard puncher, very good hard puncher. He throws solid combinations, but he can get caught just standing there in the pocket, admiring his work too long with his chin up too high. You don't want to do that against a guy like Daniel Jacobs, who has very, very fast hands. Now, both of these guys reside, ironically enough, in Brooklyn. So this could be
by the same guy.
Yeah, so this could be billed as another battle of the Brooklyn type fights that Daniel Jacobs had with Peter Quillen. He's well known in Brooklyn. So it's an interesting fight. I like this fight, but I like Daniel Jacobs. Now Derevyanchenko is going to come to fight. That's the one thing about him. I'll give him that. He comes to fight. Okay. But I just think from an overall experience standpoint, and just being, in my opinion, the more I think both of these guys from a skill set standpoint is kind of even. I just think Jacobs has the faster hands, and I just think Jacobs, his athleticism is going to make up for a lot of things that he don't have that Derevyanchenko does good, because he's been in the ring with arguably the best middleweight and held his own. So his confidence is, I mean, you see it in the next two fights he had after that. His confidence is riding a whole new high. So I like this fight. I really like this fight. Two guys that can punch, two guys that can knock each other out. But I think from an experience standpoint, you got to go with Daniel Jacobs.
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned the circumstances, why they're fighting for a vacant IBF belt. Just give a brief summary. When Triple G fought Vanes Monterosen, he was given an exemption for that fight. After the Monterosen win, which he knocked Monterosen out in 2 rounds, he sought a second exemption. The IBF refused because they're sticking by their guideline, giving Derevyanchenko as the mandatory guy. They stipulated that he has to fight him. And Triple G asked for a second exemption, presumably so he can seek a fight with Canelo. The IBF balked, stripped him of the belt, and we have now Jacobs and Derevyanchenko, fighting for this vacant IBF belt. One more story. I was going to write about that for Three Kings, but I decided to write about something else, and that is Ryota Murata, Japanese middleweight. He lost in controversial fashion to Ndam. A lot of people felt he was robbed. Defeated Ndam to win a title at middleweight. Had a defense in April on ESPN Plus app. Well, he's making the second defense of that middleweight belt, coming to America to do so in October, presumably on the 20th. More than likely, it will be against his mandatory contender, Caleb Plant. The issue for this, for the question for you, Bo, your thoughts on Murata coming to the U.S. To defend the belt, and this title defense will be a ESPN top-ranked promoted show, and it's anticipated that that bout will be televised on the ESPN Plus app.
You know, it's really kind of strange because Murata is holding a belt that supposedly the WBA was getting rid of. Remember the whole consolidating thing?
Yeah.
That's why Daniel Jacobs fought. Gennady Golovkin in the first place. So it's ironic he's holding a belt that the WBA was supposedly getting rid of, which was the regular title. And for years I've always, and it's crazy because holding that makes you a viable champion, which is what Golovkin is talking about with the title defense, because he was a regular champion forever. I don't have a problem with Murata making his American debut, because reality is he wants to break into this market. Like you said, he wants to fight. After that, he's going to fight. What's the guy's name? Caleb Plant. He's going to be fighting. He's going to be fighting Caleb Plant, and Caleb Plant is eager to get in there with somebody. Him and James DeGale actually got into it at the weigh-in when DeGale and Truex was going there. So Caleb Plant is eager to get in with somebody. Haven't seen Plant in a while, but I like Murata coming to the U.S. I like that he's trying to get that crossover. On top of the fact that fighting on the ESPN Plus app can only help you, because you can reach a wider array of audience of people who may not have normally known you will know you now. So I like it. I think that I don't know if they're going to go right away and fighting a guy like Caleb Plant. I think they'll try to build him a little bit more before making that fight, so it could really mean something and be a main event type of fight. And then of course is trying to get a guy like Caleb Plant to come to some type of agreement to where Caleb Plant would be able to fight on the ESPN app network. So it might have to even go to purse bid, but Al and Bobber has been able to work before. I like it. I like the move. Hopefully the winner of this will be able to maybe even move into the spotlight, because let's face it, we got to start getting more names out there in the middleweight division. There's who names are not Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin. We got to start building more stars at middleweight. Otherwise, it will have another situation with Golovkin where he was we didn't build enough stars at middleweight. So the guys he was fighting, people really didn't know anything about him. So it seemed like his career was subpar because he wasn't fighting no big names. So we got to start building more stars. That way we won't run into a situation where we have a champion and nobody, for whatever reason, money or whatever, isn't fighting him. And, everybody's getting their fair shake to shine.
I'm looking at this long term, this fight presumably against Brandt, and then maybe against Caleb Plant afterwards. I'm looking at this long term. For me, he's getting Bob Arum is having this fight in the U.S. Not only to get him in the U.S. market, but thinking 12 months from now, trying to seek a possible fight with Golovkin. For me, that's the long-term goal that I think that Arum has in place for Murata. Get his name out there, maybe have him fight in the States a couple of times, and ultimately fight Triple G. Whether Triple G is successful against Canelo or not, I think still that's the fight that Arum wants, be it here in the States or even bringing Golovkin to Japan. Arum would love to bring Golovkin to Japan because he sees the money. But I think that's the long-term goal here, is to have Murata have some U.S. exposure and ultimately seek a big fight, and that big fight being Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. Let's move in.
If he fights,
go ahead, Bob.
I'm just saying thing. If it's Golovkin, you fight in Japan because you can get more money in Japan. But if it's Canelo, if they shift it to Canelo, then you can fight right here in the U.S. because you can get more money fighting Canelo here in the U.S. than you probably can over in Japan.
Yeah. Let's move on and start talking about some fights that's happening this weekend. I said it was going to be a short show. I'm going to run through it this week. Big fight, of course, is Manny Pacquiao's return to the ring following his upset loss to Jeff Horn, fighting in Malaysia against Lucas Matthysse for a belt, WBA belt, quote unquote. The question is, Bo, for both fighters, how do you think Manny will look after the year layoff following the loss to Horn, in which he didn't look that great? A lot of people felt he won, but to me, he looked old that night. And Matthysse yes, he knocked out the Thai guy uh, with basically one shot. Um, but Matthysse, he didn't look that great either. He looked disinterested in that fight, like he really didn't want to be there. So this is kind of a crossroads deal for both guys. Your thoughts?
It's one of, it's funny. Normally, this is where I would say it's kind of hard to follow up all that you just said, Mike. But I'm gonna follow it up with this. It's weird that we would be talking about Manny Pacquiao and as a crossroad fight. Like, think about how weird that is. We're talking about Manny Pacquiao as this is a crossroads fight. It's for, like you said, a quote unquote WBA, title. I guess it's the WBA regular title, which for years Manny Pacquiao has always fought for the
WBO.
the WBO, right? But this is for the WBA regular title, and I guess it's because Matthysse won that belt. He won the WBA regular title, which so you know, it's a fight that will be exciting because style makes fight. One thing about Lucas Matthysse is he comes to fight. He is hittable. He's going to be right there in the line of fire. Matthysse was able to box. That was because he was in there with who was it that he fought? Who was it? Ruslan Pavarnikov. And Ruslan Pavarnikov, anybody can outbox Ruslan Pavarnikov. So he was able to fight Ruslan Pavarnikov, and he fights him, and everybody thought, "Oh wow, this guy's an awesome boxer," and really no, he's not. Then he fought Emmanuel Taylor, but if you really like, let's dig into Emmanuel Taylor. Like, who really is Emmanuel Taylor? Like, what I'm saying, like Emmanuel Taylor. I'm not trying to knock him, but who really Emmanuel Taylor? I could what you call it beat him?
Broner.
Broner. Yeah, I say Adrian Broner beat him, and in that fight, he was very hittable. And once Broner started letting his hands go, we saw what happened to him. Then he fought that dude, Karam, and he was able, like you said, he didn't look all that impressive. So it's a fight that when you look at it on the surface, because whenever he has stepped up, Lucas Matthysse, when he stepped up against Judah, he took an L. When he stepped up against Alexander, he took an L. When he stepped up against Garcia, he took an L. When he stepped up against Victor Potro, he took an L. Well, he's going in there with Manny Pacquiao, and this is the right opponent for Manny Pacquiao, and they do this. They pick the right opponents after Pacquiao suffers a loss. They pick these good opponents for him. They did it when he got knocked out by Marquez. And he went on the greatest 3-fight win streak I've ever saw because he had the right opponents in front of him that he didn't have to worry about, and then he could look good against. So Lucas Matthysse is a guy that's going to be there. He's going to be right there in that line of fire. Now, the question also remains is Manny shell-shocked? Meaning that if Lucas Matthysse lands something hard, will Manny become shell-shocked? Because like you said, he didn't look that great against Jeff Horn. And when he had Jeff Horn hurt, he didn't have that tiger in his eye to finish a hurt fighter in front of him. Okay. And if you're gonna not be able to have that tiger and finish a guy, then Lucas Matthysse is definitely who you want to be in there with, because Lucas Matthysse is another cat that you can say is shell shocked when he gets hit, like with Victor Potro, when he gets hit or when he starts to get hurt or it's not going his way. There's a switch that goes off in his head, from a mental aspect. So it's a good fight, in my opinion, because I believe it's going to be a lot of action. I don't think it's going to go the distance, because if you look at it as a crosswords fight or a last hurrah fight, then I think both of these guys are going to try to, make it look good, because when you really look at the welterweight division, where either one of these guys going to go? What, Earl Spence? Where's either one of these guys going to go? Right now, the WBA super champion is no, he actually dropped that belt, didn't he? Keith Thurman dropped that belt. So, yeah. So Keith Thurman dropped that belt. So, that's my only thing is, where do either one of these guys go? So, in this fight right here, I would have to pick Manny Pacquiao. I just don't think I thought he beat Jeff Horn, but even though he didn't look that good, but Lucas Matthysse last 2 fights were guys that were tailor made to make him look good. And I just think Manny Pacquiao still has enough in him to beat Lucas Matthysse. And if he loses to Lucas Matthysse, Manny Pacquiao's done. He's done. If he loses to Lucas Matthysse, you're done. But I think he has enough in him to beat Lucas.
On balance, Pacquiao should win and should win comfortably. Faster hands and feet. Matthysse can punch, but he doesn't do a great job of cutting off the ring. Um, he can be hit, and I still have questions about him following the loss to Postal
Mm-hmm.
with the issue of the eye. If Pacquiao is Pacquiao, he's going to hit this dude a lot with a lot of headshots, and put under that kind of pressure again, how will Matthysse act? For me, this fight is on Pacquiao here. If he's close to what he was prior to the Jeff Horn fight, he will win and win comfortably. If we saw what we saw against Jeff Horn, and if there's a drop from even that, this is going to be a tough fight for him because Matthysse is going to be right there in his face, and he can hit. Um, Even at 47, he can really hit. Um, I'm going with Pacquiao in this by pretty comfortable decision, but I better not see if there's any drop off from Pacquiao, or if he's at the level that we saw against Horn. He's going to be in a little bit of difficulty. He's going to be in a little bit of difficulty. Let's move on, and going to get nerdy here. Going to talk about some fighters in the smaller weight divisions. Um, want to focus on a fight for a vacant belt at 112 between uh, um, Moruti Mthalane, South Africa, against Muhammad Waseem, fighter who I've talked about here on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report a couple times. For those who don't know, Waseem, he was ranked number one in the BC, was in line to face Higa of Japan. Matter of fact, there were negotiations for that fight to take place. Uh, didn't happen mainly because of promotional issues with Waseem. Um, Subsequently, Diego Higa lost the belt on the scales and then was stopped in the fight earlier this year. Uh, Fortunately for Waseem, he was ranked top two, three by the IBF. And when Donnie Nietes vacated that IBF flyweight title to move up to 115 to seek bigger and better opportunities, Waseem finally gets his long-awaited title shot against Mthalane, who's been a champion before, IBF flyweight champion before, fighting for the vacant title again. Your thoughts on this, Bo? Waseem, for those who don't know, Pakistani fighter, managed by Korean management, does a lot of training in Las Vegas. Matter of fact, for this fight, he is trained exclusively in Las Vegas in the Mayweather gym. I've seen Waseem fight before. Cool, calculated fighter. Um, Not the quickest feet, but good enough feet where he cuts off the ring rather reasonably well. Really solid skills. Can punch against a Mthalane who's older, 35, has been fighting since I think 2000. Um, Beat Tete years ago. The question is, what does he have left at this age?
Mm-hmm. The thing about Waseem is that many people don't notice he was the WBC silver flyweight champion. And prior to him having promotional issues, which kept him out the ring for a long time, this guy was on a tear. He was knocking everyone out that they was putting in front of him. Like you said, he doesn't. He's one of those fighters that has what I call deceptional quick feet, meaning that he doesn't have quick enough feet from a movement standpoint, but he has quick feet where he traps you. Like when you hit them ropes, he's right there in that space and he gets right back out. Like he can fill the gap and get out, fill the gap and get out. So he has quick feet as far as being able to fill the gap and get out because he can use the pivots, he use the angles. He's shown for a fighter that doesn't have a lot of fights to have good ring IQ, but he's also 30 years old. So he's not like a fighter with not a lot of fights and extremely young. No, he's an actual older fighter, which tells me he's been in the amateur ranks for a very long time. When you look at some of the guys he fought early in his career, when you look at matter of fact, if you look at how he starts his career out, he starts his career off around about his third fight, started fighting guys with winning records. Okay, so and let's not take it lightly. Winning the WBC silver That's not. I mean, winning the WBC silver, you're on your like fourth, fifth fight. That's not something to be taken very lightly. So, like you said, he was in line to fight Diego Higa, which I wanted to see that. I think we talked about this. His nickname is the Falcon, and they call him that for a reason because he picks his spots. He knows when to jump in. He knows when to attack. He has 6 knockouts. He has a 75% knockout ratio. So this is a guy that is very calculated and very methodical, and he'll have a half-inch reach advantage on the South African fighter. Now, like you said, how much mileage does I'm just gonna call him by his nickname, Babyface. How much mileage does Babyface have? Because Mike, I'm known for killing names. I'm known for killing these names. But how much mileage does he have is going to be very, very interesting. Um, you know, it's hard because the guy that he's fighting also has, he's been on the tear. He's knocked out his last 4 opponents. But we can also question, what I'm saying, the type of guys that he fought. What he's with all his experience fighting guys 11-0 and 12-3 and 15-4, and you still fighting these kind of guys well late into your career. I kind of have to look at that like, yeah, okay. So, but at the same time, he this is for the vacant IBF title. He's a former champion, so he does bring that experience. He's actually had 205 rounds of championship boxing in his pocket that he's going to bring to the ring with him. He's only been knocked out twice in his career, and that's when his 2 losses. So that tells me a puncher like Waseem, if he clips that chin, that this is where it comes in for me. A puncher like Waseem, if he clips that chin, knows how to finishes you. His 2 knockouts came to Nonito Donaire, who was a extremely hard puncher at that time, and a low-level guy by the name of Gawazala, who, again, technical knockout. So that tells me, hey, if you get to this guy chin and you know how to finish, you can get him out of there. That's the one thing that Waseem has in his favor. Outside of that, very good fight, very interesting fight, but I think Waseem is going to win. He's one of those young lions that we see coming in, making these moves, running through the division. So it's hard not to pick him. It really is hard because at 35, like you said, father time, and we've seen this happen so many times last year in boxing. That's why even being the most experienced guy, Austin Trout being the most experienced guy, sometimes, man, father time, it just, you're done. It knocks on the door and lets you know you're done when you're in there against a young, hungry lion. We saw it happen to Austin Trout, when he was in there with Jared Hurd. We actually saw it happen kind of with Edison Lotto when he was in there with Jared Hurd. So, this might be the fight where Father Time knocks on that door for Babyface and let him know you're done.
Mthalane is going to have the experience because, he's had 4 more fights. The issue for me is he comes forward. He's a come forward fighter. He's not a guy who fights on the back foot. And because of that, he's going to be right there for Waseem to hit. Waseem has you mentioned the deceptively fast feet. For me, it's the hand speed as well with Waseem. He has very quick hands. A lot of his shots are very short and hard. And he has educated hands, meaning he's not just a 1-2, a 1-2-3 guy. He's a guy who can hook off the jab, who can hook to the head and body, back to the body and head.
Yeah, he's a rhythm fighter. He's an old school rhythm fighter. That's what I used to call him.
Yeah, he can throw multiple combinations. He has a variety of punches, high skill set, in short. And if he can overcome that experience and can get to Mthalane's body, and have his hand speed come into play, I think he's going to beat him. And you mentioned the chin of Mthalane. It's not just the fact that he's been stopped twice. Even when he had the flyweight belt, there were times that he was hurt. When he fought Ricardo Nunez back in 2012, exciting fight in Panama. He went on the road to win that fight, stop Nunez in round 8, TKO, I believe. But he was put down by Nunez in that bout. So to me, that says if Nunez can put him down, I think Waseem can puts him down if he catches him. And I just think that the youth, the hunger, I think he has a very, very high skill set, Waseem. If he can overcome the experience and he doesn't kind of freeze up at the moment, get overexcited, I think he's going to win, and he could possibly win this fight by stoppage.
You know, ask yourself this question. Is Waseem, at this phase of his career, a better puncher than Nonito Donaire of 2008? And if the answer is yes, then you're also talking about a guy in Midlothian that fought Donaire in 2008 versus this version we're talking about right now.
I'm not going to say he's a harder puncher than Donaire, because Donaire had dynamite at 112. But his output is more consistent than Donaire.
Okay.
Donaire was a catch and shoot guy, a guy who pot shot a lot. He's been that way throughout his entire career.
That's true.
And he's a bit of a weight bully at 112. We're really going to be honest about it. He was a weight bully. He was a weight bully at 112. I don't think Waseem is as much of a weight bully, but he throws more consistent shots. His output is more consistent than Donaire at 112. And I think that's going to be the difference, the fact that he's more consistent with his punch output with power to head and body. I think that's going to be just a little bit too much for the South African. Final fight we're going to talk about here. Arguably the most intriguing matchup of the year, in my opinion. I know that's saying a lot. Carlos Canizales, who holds, again, one of these belts, WBA belts, this one at 108 pounds, fighting a guy by the name of Ben Liu, or depending what part of the world you come from, Liu Ben, Chinese fighter, only his second professional bout, quote unquote, Bo. He's going for a world title. I've seen Ben fight. He went the similar route that Lomachenko went, fighting fights in the AIBA, kind of, a lot of people was called semi-pro league. Fought a handful of fights there, fought one professional fight, and his second professional fight he's fighting for a world title. Against a Canizales guy who's undefeated, 20-0, 18 knockouts, a come forward fighter. Too much too soon for Ben? Is he biting off more than he can chew at this stage of his so early in his career?
You know, once upon a time I would have said that until we saw Waseem Lomachenko. And here's the thing, and I know a lot of people making the comparison of Ben Liu. They're not the same fighters. Let's get that straight. And Waseem Lomachenko, Achilles' heel in his second fight was the type of style that Orlando Salido brought to him. Carlos Canizales is a bit of a different fighter. Now, Ben Liu is going to have the height advantage he's going to be almost 2 inches taller than this guy. And he'll even have the reach advantage. Too much too soon? I'm not gonna. No, I can't say too much too soon, Mike. Because if you look at the very first guy that Ben Liu fought and beat, okay, he didn't just beat some slouch. He actually. I'm sorry. If you look at the first guy that he fought, he did win the whatever for a vacant silver title. But inside that tournament that he fought in, he fought some pretty good competitors. He looked it pretty good in there. I saw some things in there that I like that he does. He's not your typical, like, Asian fighter that stands right up. He has movement. He, like you said, educated hands. He has good educated hands. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say too much too soon. We won't know until they actually fight, because even when you look at Carlos Canizales' record, he really hasn't fought a blossom array of guys, and in most of his fights, he's a 76% knockout ratio, but against who? So it's an interesting fight to me because he's Venezuelan and he mostly has fought, over in the overseas area. People don't really pay attention to this low minimum weight division. So if Canizales loses to Ben Liu, who's making his claim, that could light a fire in there. But no, I'm not going to say too much too soon, because I think his handlers know what he can do and what he can't do. And if you did follow him in that tournament, he didn't look that bad in that tournament, Mike. Now, I'm not saying none of these guys were probably of the caliber of Carlos Canizales, but I like what I saw from him in that tournament. And, sometimes Canizales, the one thing about Carlos Canizales is he is the type of fighter that he can lose focus. I've seen him lose focus in a couple fights where he gets kind of like a daisical, and he just kind of loses focus. Then he gets it back. I don't think you want to lose focus against a guy like Ben Lou.
For me, the question is, if he can force Canizales to fight backwards, that's where he stands his best chance. Canizales' last fight, he won, but he was shaky the last half of that fight. Dare I say, the fighter he fought, Konishi, had him running for a good chunk of the last half of that bout, and he was out of gas, tired. Old school 15-round bout, Konishi could have possibly got the decision. If not got the decision, maybe stopped him because he was that tired. The problem is he had such limited experience, Ben Lou. You don't know what's going to happen if it goes to late rounds. But the talent is there. He's not Inoue in terms of power, but he's Inoue in terms of hand speed. Legit hand speed. Faster hands than Canizales. I will argue a greater skill set than Canizales. Tighter with his punches. The question is, can he overcome the lack of experience? Because, again, on balance, if you talk skill for skill, punch for skills, hand speed, Ben Lou has the advantage. Intriguing fight, 50-50 fight, in my opinion. I may write about this for Three Kings. Not going to make a prediction. I'm just going to enjoy the fight. This is a fascinating matchup. And again, if he can back Canizales up and apply some pressure on him, and especially attack that body, Canizales, he has high knockouts, but I wonder if he has late round power. And as you said, his opposition is shaky at best. So I'm really looking forward to this fight. I want to pick Ben Lou because it would be a fascinating story, and it's big, particularly for boxing in China, because ever since Shaming lost, he looks like he's going to retire due to eye injury. You don't see anybody popping up in the ranks when it comes to the amateur ranks or professional ranks. It's big for him, so there's a lot of pressure on him. Again, I just want to see the fight. I really, really want to see a fight. This is, again,
you know what, Mike? How boxing has came along to where a guy making his second appearance as a pro going for a title is in a 50-50 fight against a guy that's 20-0.
Exactly. So, again, I just want to see how it goes. I just want to see how it goes. Again, I'm maybe it's just me, but this is a fight I'm really, really looking forward to. Again, this is going to be a short show. There's only two people on the show. Well, one person really, along myself. We can talk about this fight, another fight. Regis Prograis. Number one contender for Ramirez belt at 140 pounds. He's been calling out Ramirez a lot. He's going to fight in his hometown on ESPN against a guy by the name of Velasco. Quick word on that, Bo.
Regis is out for blood. That's all I can. Listen, I've talked to him. And he is out for blood. Like you said, he feels he should be fighting Ramirez. And then the whole thing with O'Connor, passing out from dehydration, and Ramirez. I mean, and Regis even tweeted, "Hey, I can make that fight with you next week. I cancel this fight, and I'll make that fight with you next week, no problem." If you look at the Regis is he's looking to make a statement in this fight because he's going into the WBSS tournament. So he's looking to make a statement in this fight, and he's the odds-on favorite. Now with Josh Taylor entering it, it kind of adds a little bit of spice to the mix. And Hooker, actually, I think Hooker is not going to be in it like we thought, because he's going to be fighting Alex. I think he's going to be fighting Alex Ocedo.
And he was arrested recently.
Yeah, he was arrested recently. Yep, I forgot about that. Yeah, he was arrested recently. So, but Regis is looking to make a statement, and it's a hometown fight. So he's out for blood.
Yeah, I don't want to be disrespectful of Velasco, but he's in trouble. He's talking in highly motivated programs. He's like a madman right now. He's ready to walk through whoever he has to in order to get that title shot. That's what he sees at the end of the rainbow. That's all he's thinking about. Whoever I have to go through to win this title, I'm gonna go through it. I'm gonna win this world title. So yeah, a guy that highly motivated, whoever he's in the ring with next, yeah, they in trouble. And Velasco, he's gonna be
Yeah.
definitely in
And,
trouble.
and the opposition that Velasco has faced. I mean, I remember when Regis fought Diaz, and Diaz was undefeated, and he just tore through Diaz. Like, whoa. Then Ndongo, and he tore through Ndongo. So if you look at the level of competition that Regis is facing, then you look at the level of competition, Velasco is an Argentine fighter, So it's and I'm with you. He Regis is just looking to, like, he's angry and he's looking to take this out on somebody.
Right. And I think we're going to shut the show down on that note. Since you're the only guest here, Bo from Truth and Facts About Sports. For folks who want to talk boxing, for folks who want to follow the adventures of your daughter, you and your daughter, I think you're going to drop another video soon. For those who are into the app world, let the folks know where they can find you and mention where you can find those apps.
All right, man. No problem. I appreciate that. Of course, you can find the apps if you have a iPhone. We have one app for the iPhone, and then the rest of them is for LG. This is kind of like Candy Crush, but it's similar to it. And then, of course, Truth and Fact Sports Talk. And you can also catch me writing my articles at 3kingsboxing.com, which, Mike just told you guys about it. You can follow me on Twitter at truth_factbox1. Same thing at Instagram, truth_factbox1. And, me and my daughter, like he said, me and my daughter, we're back. We're going to be dropping that. Also go to Three Kings Boxing, where you also see videos that we drop. And if there's a fighter who's fighting the week, we do videos for them. So, and you can find me right here on Pound for Pound. And check out the interview that I had, and it was the time of my life when I interviewed Gail Falkenthal. She made me say her name I don't know how many times, so I got it right. So check that out. And oh man, it's a pleasure to be here. I hate nobody else was here, but Mike, hey, it's always a pleasure being here.
And you're going to have an exclusive interview with a certain woman boxer. Do you want to disclose
I
that
don't
now?
want
Or
to
you want to
jinx
hold
it.
off
I
on
don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, I am going to be fighting a female fighter and former world champion as well. So be on the lookout for that, you guys.
Indeed, indeed. And for those who want to talk the sweet science with yours truly, or fitness or anything else, uh, 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 if you're into Beachbody, first off, speaking of fitness, everybody knows the new workout routine there. Lift 4 challenge. I'm going to be part of the Lift challenge starting next week. If you're interested in that, if you're interested in Beachbody or anything like that, just hit me up on Twitter. Brother JR at Brother JR76. Just hit me up there. If you want to talk anything else, hit me up, Brother JR76 on Twitter. As I said to begin the show, if you want to check out all information regarding Pound for Pound Box Report, P4P Boxing Report.wordpress.com. That's the blog page. You check the right of the page. You can find the links to the channels and pages on Facebook, G+, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, as well as listen to the show, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM for the folks in the UK, as well as Mixcloud. On the next episode, we will do a recap of the Pacquiao Matthysse card, the Mthalane fight with Waseem, the Carlos Canizales fight with Ben Lou. We'll do a recap of Progress and the guy he's going to body this weekend, I predict. And we will do a preview of Jaime Munguia. He's fighting Liam Smith. Munguia, who just destroyed. Oh gosh, what's the name? What's the guy he destroyed?
Saddam Ali.
Saddam Ali. Last time out. Again, why did HBO do that to Saddam Ali?
Golden Boy got this thing.
Golden Boy? Excuse me. Why didn't Golden Boy do that? Because they
But
set him up.
Golden
Uh,
Boy got this thing with ruining their fighters. They just did it to Francisco Vargas. They
yeah.
just they got a thing with doing this to their
Why did
fighters.
they do? Why they do that to Saddam Ali? That was rude. Um, they're gonna fight in Las Vegas, and I'm saying it right now. I think Munguia is gonna just run through Liam Smith. That's just my opinion. On the undercard of that fight, Alberto Machado finally returning to the ring, finally fighting, defending his belt at 130 pounds, making the first defense of that title, and the final of the cruiserweight tournament. Finally, is here. Going to happen the 21st in Moscow, which should be a terrific fight. Alexander Usyk, Murat Gassiev, they're fighting for the title. For everything is on the line. All the belts are on the line at cruiserweight, so that should be a terrific fight. So we'll preview that, as well as Cecilia Brakas, your favorite women's fighter, Bo. She's going to fight on the undercard. So we will talk about all of those fights. Again, thanks, Bo, for joining us on Bo from Truth and Facts About Sports. For Bo, I am Michael. This is episode 214 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone, have a good evening. Good night.
Night.